Okay, so today we're going to look at operations with radical expressions. So this really goes back to what we did in the first lesson. And when we add and subtract radical expressions, we really think of like terms. All right, so for example, if we have 2x plus 3x, we combine those to get 5x. So if we have 2 root 7 plus 3 root 7, we just combine the coefficients, the 2 and the 3, and that's how we get 5 root 7. Okay, so the first one, we have 4 root 3 plus 6 root 3 minus 5 root 3. So we're really just combining the coefficients. So 4 plus 6 is 10, minus 5 is 5, and then we need that square root of 3 because that's just like our variable. Here we have 3 root 2 minus 5 root 2 plus, and then we treat that as a 1. So 3 minus 5 is negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1, or just negative root 2. Now, when we're simplifying these, right, if their radicals are not in simplest form, we're going to simplify them first. So take a look at C. We have square root of 20 plus square root of 45 plus square root of 180. All right, so again, we're thinking back to those perfect squares: 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, and so on. All right, so I think what's the largest perfect square that goes into 20? That will be 4. So we rewrite this as square root of 4 times square root of 5. The largest perfect square that goes into 45 is 9. So 9 times 5. Whoops. And then square root of 180. This one you might have to use a calculator. So 9 goes into 180, but it goes in 20 times. So, and 20s can be simplified. So 180 is actually divisible by 36. So I'm going to divide this into square root of 36 times square root of 5. Okay, now let's simplify all the perfect squares. So that gives us 2 root 5 plus 3 root 5 plus 6 root 5. Add up all the coefficients, 2, 3, and 6, and that gives us 11 times the square root of 5. Okay, next one. This one also has some coefficients. So I have 6. Now, square root of 27, I know 9 will go into that. So it'll be 9 times 3 plus 8. And then square root of 12, I know 4 goes into that. So square root of 4 times square root of 3 plus 2. And then square root of 75, 25 goes into that 3 times. So I have 6 times 3 root 3 plus 8 times 2 root 3 plus 2 times 5 root 3. So I have 18 root 3 plus 16 root 3 plus 10 root 3. I'm going to combine 18, 16, and 10. And I get 44 root 3. Okay. Same thing for E. Now for E, the square root of 6, there's nothing I can do with that, so I'm going to just leave it because it's just 3 times 2. There's no perfect squares. Same thing with the 2 root 3, but 12 can be broken up into 4 times 3. So I have square root of 6 plus 2 times the square root of 3 plus 2 times the square root of 3. Now you'll notice here, 2 of them have a square root of 3, but this has a square root of 6. So the one that has the square root of 6, there's nothing I can do with it. I'm just going to leave that the way it is. So square root of 6, and then I can combine the 2 root 3 plus the 2 root 3, which will be 4 root 3. Okay, and we leave it like that. We don't need to do anything else. Okay, 2 times the square root of 50 minus 3 times the square root of 32. So we're going to do 2, and then we're going to break this up into square root of 25 times 2, and then 32. 16 is the largest perfect square. So I have 2 times 5 root 2 minus 3 times 4 root 2. So this will give us 10 root 2 minus 12 root 2, which will result in a negative 2 square root of 2. Okay? So when we multiply radical expressions, we actually saw this a little bit in the last lesson with the conjugates. If you have two different terms, you have to FOIL. Okay, you might have to use distributive property, you might have to use FOIL. It depends on how many terms. So if I'm looking at example 2a, I just have one term. Think of that as a monomial. So I'm just going to distribute to both parts. So I get square root of 2 times square root of 8 is square root of 16. Plus, I'm going to get 4 times the square root of 6. Remember, radicals get multiplied together. So this will give me 4. And then square root of 6 can't be broken down any simpler, so we just leave it. Again, we can't combine those because the other one doesn't have a square root of 6 in it. Okay, next one. All right, since I have two terms, I have a binomial and a binomial, I have to FOIL here. So I'm going to multiply 4 times 3, so that's 12. The outside is plus 4 root 5 plus inside 3 root 5. And then square root of 5 times square root of 5 is square root of 25, which is 5. Now I'm going to combine, so I can combine the 12 and the 5 gives us 17. And I can combine the 4 root 5 and the 3 root 5 is 7 root 5. Okay, C also have to use FOIL. Now it's going to get more complicated. So here I have 5 root 5 times 6 root 10. Remember, the whole numbers get multiplied together, the radicals get multiplied together. So it's going to be 30, and then square root of 5 times square root of 10 is square root of 50. Now the outside, so it's going to be minus 5 times 2 is 10. Inside, I'm going to have square root of 30. Now I'll multiply these two. Minus 24, square root of 30. And then the last, I get plus 8 and the square root of 18. Okay, so the square root of 50 and square root of 18 can be simplified, but the square root of 30 has no perfect squares. So 30 times, and now we're going to rewrite this 25 times square root of 2. These I can actually just combine them. So that's going to be minus 34 root 30 plus, now square root of 18, I can rewrite that as square root of 9 times square root of 2. So I have 30 times 5 root 2 minus 34 root 30 plus 8 times 3 root 2. So I get 150 square root of 2 minus 34 times square root of 30 plus 24 times square root of 2. So it's kind of a lot there. So I'm going to combine these two because they both have a square root 2. So that'll be 174 root 2 minus 34 root 30. 2 more to go. Okay, this one is actually a little shorter. So we have square root of 2 plus square root of 3 squared. So that really means I have square root of 2 plus square root of 3, and then square root of 2 plus square root of 3, and I'm going to use FOIL. So square root of 2 times square root of 2 is square root of 4, plus outside is going to be square root of 2 times square root of 3 is square root of 6. On the inside, I get another square root of 6. And actually, I could just rewrite this as 2, right? And then multiply the square root of 3 times square root of 3, I get 3. Add the 2 and 3, I get 5. Combined square root of 6 plus square root of 6 is 2 root 6. Okay, and the last one, I have a fraction, and then I have just the square root of 6. So first thing I'll do, I'm going to rewrite this. And I notice I have a square root in the bottom, so I'm actually going to multiply by square root of 3 over square root of 3 to rationalize. So I get square root of 6 over 3 plus the square root of 6. Now, I can actually find a common denominator. So I have a 3, and if I put that over 1, I can multiply by 3 over 3. So I have square root of 6 plus 3 root 6. Right? And so when I add those together, I get 4 root 6 over 3.